Here we have come today with parent anxiety among cancer patient session with Swati Suramya, breast cancer survival and cancer coach. Cancer made Swati realize that putting things on hold and thinking you can do this later or do it 5 years down the line does not help in life. It is essential to be happy at the moment. Being mindful of the present and the surroundings around you helps you enjoy what you have and not think of what you don't have or what you could have had. People like us who are privileged should be thankful for what we have, having the finances required to undergo something expensive. Cancer, in a way, is a bit of wake up call for us to love ourselves more, take care of ourselves more, and not neglect ourselves when trying to dedicate ourselves as a mother. I'm so glad to welcome you for today's first session, Swadiji. Over to you.
Thank you, Anne. It's a pleasure and also a great honor that you chosen me as a speaker. I'm just an ordinary person who's gone through an extraordinary battle, and I hope I can make a difference in a few people's lives. Ever since I completed my treatment in March 2020, I've tried to help in my individual capacity as many women, breast cancer patients, and survivors as much as possible. Probably every month, I must have spoken to 4 to 5 patients in the last 1.5 years. So that's been my humble attempt and my way of giving back to the society, to fellow people, fellow survivors, to the best of my ability.
Yeah, please continue with your journey, ma'am. Like, how talk to us about your journey a little bit.
Okay. So I was living an ordinary life before cancer. So I like to segregate my life into two phases. One was the life before cancer, and one was the life post cancer. I think most survivors you would have spoken to usually do that. They think of their life as a pre-cancer phase and a post-cancer phase. So I was leading an ordinary life. I had just become a mother in 2015, and 2017 I quit my full-time job and I started operating from home, working part-time with a startup and all. So I had not a very good work-life balance, but and didn't have any existing health issues. I was in my mind I was very fit and taking care of my health and everything. In December 2018, I discovered a lump in my breast while doing a self-exam. It was categorized as benign by the gynecologist I consulted, and after that by the general surgeon who I consulted, and it was decided that I would be. It was advised that I would have to go through a lumpectomy. So after I went through the lumpectomy and the biopsy was done, it was found that I had cancer. So this was so by the time we did the surgery and the biopsy result came, this was Feb 2019. I remember the day and the date very distinctly. So it is not a moment that anybody can forget. It came as a shock. Because the report was a little delayed, I had started to get a few doubts. But no one ever believes that they can get cancer, especially the first timers. So it came as a bit of a shock. Yes, my family was shocked. Nobody could believe it. My father refused to believe the report, and he was like, let's get another diagnosis. Let's get your wax blocks from the hospital and take it somewhere else and get a retest done. Maybe get another biopsy done and all that. But I had been operated at a very reputed hospital in Bangalore, and their um, experts are well recognized across the country. So I had no doubts. The only question was what to do next. And I immediately spoke to my gynecologist, who directed me to an oncologist friend of hers of the same hospital. And I had received my report on Saturday. Monday, I was in the hospital with my report. And the doctor outlined the entire line of treatment. I think knowing what you're getting into kind of put my mind to rest. If I go back and think of that day, when it was outlined to me what was expected and what would happen over the next few months, it kind of put my mind to rest, because then I was no more, fearing the unknown. Why do we always, fear things? We always have a fear of the unknown. In this case, now that I knew what was going to happen, it put my mind to rest, and that was a good starting point. So that's how the journey began. I underwent another surgery and then chemotherapy, radiation, and I was HER2 positive, so I underwent 17 cycles of targeted therapy with Herceptin. I completed my treatment in March 2020, just a few days before the lockdown started in India. So, well in time to be safely home and confined. But yeah, people are frustrated with the lockdown since last year or staying confined at home. I've been at home since 2019, and it's all right. You have to motivate yourself. Some days are good, some days are bad. You have to just find your inner resolve and get on with things. So that's my journey in a nutshell. Regarding mental health of patients, and so I think the biggest battle is the mental battle. Once you have found the right doctor and your treatment has been decided, the line of treatment is confirmed, and you get start the treatment, the first thing which starts getting impacted is the mental health. Because of various things. I've studied about this in great detail. Although I must admit here, and I would want to give a disclaimer here that I'm not a therapist. I'm not a qualified therapist or a counselor. I am not giving out any medical advice, but I am talking only from my personal experience and what worked for me. So the first thing that people come up with is, it is a deadly disease, and they're so scared, and then they're like, they feel alone. So the first thing to understand is you're not alone. Sadly, unfortunately, cancer is a bigger epidemic than coronavirus, statistically speaking. I'm not talking, hypothetically. If you look at the sheer number of people getting infected at a very young age for various reasons, it could be lifestyle, it could be stress, it could be, the fittest of individuals are getting cancer now. Most women I've spoken to in my 1 year, so mostly people come up and say, I'm of the same age, I read about your story, that's why I contacted you. And that's shocking because women in the age of 25 to 35 or maybe even 40 coming up and saying, oh, I had cancer too. When I was diagnosed, I thought I was the only one in that age. And that's important to know that you're not alone in this battle. You're not alone. There are thousands, maybe even lakhs like you out there suffering alone. They don't have the resources that you have. What you have is a thinking mind, and you have to control your mind and your willpower and keep yourself strong for the duration of the treatment, because the treatment can break your body. What it should not do is break your mind, because once you give up mentally, the best of treatment does not work. And that was told to me by my oncologist himself. He was like, Swati, this breast cancer treatment, early stage breast cancer treatment, for an oncologist, this is the easiest thing to do. It is a very easy treatment. The treatment is not very complicated. The medicines are not very complicated. They're not as terrible, within double quotes, as, other forms of cancer. And probably this is the worst phase of your life when you're undergoing chemotherapy, of your breast cancer treatment journey, when you're going through your chemo. Once you're halfway through, you'll start feeling that things are getting better, that things are improving, and just treat it like a countdown. One down, seven more to go, two down, five more to go, like that. So just treat it that way. So staying mentally strong definitely helps. The treatment, of course, is something which happens over a period of time. See, it is a very slow process. You have to be patient. It's a very slow process, and the impact of the treatment can be seen, very, very late and very, very slowly. So if you lose your patience in between, it is going to be counterproductive. You can't expect instant. It is not a disease where you take a pill and tomorrow your symptoms are gone. It doesn't happen that way. There is a reason why this disease is so dreaded. So yeah. So first thing that I wanted to talk about was that you're not alone. And the next question that people usually have is, which affects almost everybody, is why me? I asked myself, why me? I'm sure the other participants, a lot of respect for Mehul. He's a great champion of us survivors. I mean, I'm sure all of us will agree on this, that we have all asked this question, why me? Did I do something wrong? And what did I do wrong? And where did I go wrong? You kind of start trying to analyze various reasons, such as this could have caused it, that could have caused it. I was a non-smoker, non-drinker. I mean, people used to make fun of me. Bangalore, mein Indranagar, you go and order a virgin mojito, people make fun of you. It's like, oh, the bartender went to buy lemons, the bartender went to buy mint. I have gone through that phase, and never been overweight, always on the underside of weight. And I used to eat organic food from Big Basket, for God's sake. I should have been the last person to get cancer. Believe you me, all of us think like that. But yeah, in spite of leading the best of lifestyles, it's your immunity which plays games. So it's okay. Why me? It's better to say, why not? Because sometimes you need a wake up call in life. Though I pray and hope that nobody has to undergo something like this, but sometimes you need some certain, small shocks in life to realize that your perception of right and wrong is not absolute. What you perceive as right and wrong is not really true, and you have to broaden your horizons and try to understand what is good for you, or what works and what doesn't, and just operating out of your own silo doesn't help. It taught me to be more mindful of my surroundings, more mindful of my health, not ignoring my small indicators of not feeling very energetic on certain days, or not feeling like I could focus on things mentally also. So that kind of for every survivor, every patient, if you stop thinking why me, and stop trying to find reasons, that makes your life a whole lot easier. Some of us turn towards spirituality. I have read the Bhagavad Gita extensively, and one of the chapters tells, whenever you ask this question, why me? Whether it is heartbreak, whether it is loss of a loved one, any kind of bereavement in the family, any kind of disease. So when you ask why me, the answer lies there. And I don't want to get into that side of things. But yeah, you have to keep your mind distracted from the why me aspect and focus on right here and right now. What you have to do, the task is cut out. You have your treatment plan outlined. You have to undergo your treatment, show up at the right time, do not delay your treatment, do not strictly adhere to the regime that has been promised, and try to keep yourself distracted with things that are interesting, that keep your mind off your sense of I'm sick all the time. If you keep repeating that to yourself, that really affects you mentally. It's draining. It drains you mentally as well as emotionally and physically. So yeah, why me aspect, when I got rid of that, that really helped. Instead of thinking why me, I started focusing on the treatment regime, on the plan laid out, and I ensured that I followed every date, every schedule that was being outlined. It may not be possible for everyone because some people develop different kinds of complications, but at a broad level, if we stick to a certain routine, it on a daily basis as well. If you have a daily routine, and if you have a monthly plan and a yearly plan for the treatment and everything, so that really helps in keeping your anxiety and fear at bay. And the third thing that I want to talk about is that fear and anxiety is common to all patients, all cancer patients. It doesn't leave anyone. All of us go through it. Some of us have, very mild effects. Some of us have more pronounced effects. And I was reading, a therapist friend had suggested that there's a theory in psychology called the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross model, which talks about the 5 stages of grief. If you read about it, and again, I'm not a therapist administering this therapy to anybody, but I want to talk about the 5 stages of grief that I went through. So the theory says that there are these 5 phases. First is denial, then second is anger, then third is bargaining, then depression, and then finally acceptance. Now, all of us don't go through all these 5 phases. Um, all of us don't go through these phases in the same sequence. Sometimes depression comes first, and maybe after that, anger, or maybe acceptance comes, or whatever. So, in my case, when I think back of my symptoms and the way I felt, I think it was in perfect sequence. First thing is denial. Denial. No, it can't be me. Maybe it is somebody else's report. It can't be me. It can't happen to me. We all think like that. Arey, I never did anything wrong. How can it happen to me? I've had, just crossed my mind, and I think I should share this thought with you all. Maybe some of the survivors will relate to this. I was avoiding meeting and talking to people during my treatment as per my doctor's advice. And he was like, people can't help you except your oncologist, and whatever advice you'll get will be unnecessary and mostly harmful for you. So rather do, and your immunity is weak as well. So considering all this, don't speak or don't meet people. But some, seemingly helpful people wanted to meet and talk. And the first few calls that I got were like, what did you do wrong to get it? I mean, that kind of statement is wrong at so many levels. You can't ask a patient, what did you do wrong to get it? I never consciously tried to get it. And nobody can say, even if somebody has a cold or cough, I mean, it is so wrong at so many levels to say something like that. I don't say that with any tinge of bitterness. It's just something that I put down to experience, my experience and the other person's lack of experience in dealing with anybody with or who's undergoing through an emotional trauma. So yeah, so these are things that should not happen, but they do happen, and that kind of reinforces the problems with mental health that patients and survivors have. So I went when I was undergoing my treatment. I underwent this denial phase. Then there was anger. I was so fit. I was so healthy. Why me? Why not others? People who live such unhealthy lives. I have friends who are smokers and alcoholics who drink almost every alternate day, who smoke, who chain smoke. People who eat all kinds of unhealthy stuff, who literally survive on junk food. Why me when I was, leading a clean and healthy life, and why not others? You can tend to feel angry when you see others are fit and you're not. So that kind of anger almost everybody feels, I'm sure, at some point or the other. Maybe less, maybe more, maybe not as pronounced, but I definitely remember feeling that. And I have no qualms in admitting that I had really deep rooted anger at that time in my life, during the course of my treatment. And then I went through the bargaining phase when I was like praying to God, please make me better. I'll be a better person. I'll not do anything wrong. Whatever wrong I did, please forgive me. We all go through that phase. Like भगवान से मन्नत मांगना कि मुझे अच्छा कर दो. I'll be a better person. I will start, devoting my life to good things. You do all that. Everybody does that. At any phase, even if you're undergoing an emotional trauma, like you're losing a parent or losing a relative, we all do that. उसको वापस ले आओ. I will give up anything. I will give up alcohol if my dad comes back. वो सभी करते हैं. It's like pretty common to feel that way. We may not be vocal about it, but we feel it. We live that emotion. And there's that phase of depression when you are so low, you don't feel like creeping out of your bed. You don't feel like showering. You don't feel like getting dressed. You don't feel like getting up and fixing yourself breakfast or talking or taking your medication or doing anything. You just feel like lying down like a vegetable. We there are phases like that. I've spoken to a lot of patients who confess to having such feelings, and that's the most damaging thing you can do as a patient. You have to stay active. Your treatment has to be effective. For that, you have to be active. You have to do as much as possible by yourself, at least your own day-to-day chores you have to do by yourself. Ensure you have a good diet, good fluid intake, exercise, everything. So that phase, that mental phase of depression actually affects your treatment and your progress to such a large extent that sometimes patients stop the treatment. That is something that is really, really harmful. That is really, really something that should not be done. If you are going through a phase like that, please get help. please get professional help from a therapist, from a counselor or a therapist or a certified practitioner. Um, a lot of times people go around seeking alternative therapies. Please do not do that. Please focus and concentrate on the treatment that you're taking. You cannot combine two different regimes of treatment. They can be mutually exclusive, but they can also be mutually interfering, which is like the most wrong thing anybody can do. I mean, a lot of people have asked me. I have been asked this question almost every day in the last 1.5 years. Did you go for any alternative therapies? Oh, when we look at you, you don't look like a patient or a survivor. None of us look like patients or survivors. I mean, look at Mehul. Look at me. I mean, the others don't have their video on. I mean, look at everybody. I mean, हमारे चेहरे पे थोड़ी ना लिखा है कि हम पेशेंट या सर्वाइवर हैं. When we were sick, we were really sick. But once the treatment's effects wore off, we are normal people just like anybody else. I mean, I can't grow a horn to show that I had breast cancer. I had a proper reconstruction, so I don't even look it. A lot of people, women undergo mastectomy, which is really damaging for their mental health. Nowadays in India, the more acceptable practice and the greater focus is on breast preservation, which is really good for mental health of younger women. Postmenopausal women probably do not give that much focus on it, not so much attention. But I'm sure even there are people out there also in that age group also, and it really affects their self-esteem. So I think this approach in treatment is really revolutionary. It really, especially for breast cancer patients and survivors, is a really good approach. If you can preserve the breast with some kind of conservative approach, and without letting the quality of treatment get affected, I think that's really good. So when the last phase among those 5 phases I was talking about is acceptance. I think that comes in the end. Doesn't come first for anyone I know. Maybe there are a few people who are tougher than me or tougher than most people I know. But acceptance comes in the end when you kind of make peace with the world. Okay, this happened. If you excuse me for using these words, I'm saying shit happens. And you get your act together after that, right? So things can go really south, things can go really wrong. But once you have realized that there's a problem, the problem is your cancer, there's a treatment, which is your surgery, chemo, radiation, hormone treatment, targeted therapy, etc., etc. The treatment is available, you are getting it. Now what? Accept it. Accept your reality. Whether it is a change in your physical appearance, in your physical strength, in your ability to do your day-to-day work, all these things, accept it and move on. Okay, this is probably the worst phase of my life, but from now on, it's going to get better. That kind of positive affirmations, if you start doing, okay, I'm feeling terrible today, I'm really weak, but it's only for my betterment and I'm going to be better tomorrow or day after, but I will not lose faith. But this kind of positive affirmation really helped me. And I've shared this with a lot of patients. There's a young girl who was diagnosed at the age of 27. She was from Mumbai and she was staying in Sweden. She recently moved to UK. She completed her entire cycle of treatment. She was a triple negative case. She had a love marriage and moved to Sweden. And within a year, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. Very, very young girl, amazingly energetic and beautiful. And I mean, looking at her, I felt, she should have been the last person to have it. And she underwent the whole treatment and she used to contact me every now and then, I'm facing this symptom, that symptom. I was like, let the symptoms be what they are. If you are anxious, just go talk to your doctor and they'll put your mind to rest. If there's something which needs which is worth investigating, which needs a second look, they'll do it. I'm a layperson, I will not give you medical advice. All what I can tell you is don't be so anxious, for you are getting the right treatment. Sometimes there are certain symptoms which you see and you kind of tend to have an exaggerated view of it. Like, oh, I have some rash in my scalp. Is this a sign of my cancer metastasizing to the brain? I mean, something as basic as that. Because you're already anxious, you tend to over magnify certain things. Oh, I'm feeling dizzy. I think my disease is spreading. You recently had a PET scan, my dear. You cannot have, if it was all clear, it cannot happen that the PET scan will be wrong. So these kind of things patients always have, these kind of doubts. I was speaking to a lady recently who's become a dear friend, and she has a triple negative cancer. And she was like, you have a very strong chance of a relapse. Because all we younger patients, we all have very aggressive cancers. That's why we did get cancer in the first place. Like, there will be a relapse at some point or the other. How do you deal with such fears? And I'm like, you can't live your life being scared all the time. You have to live your daily life. You have a blessing of a life, of a healthy life now, post cancer, and make the most of it. Whatever you have not done so far, your 5 year goals or your 10 year goals, make them your next day goals, next month goals, and probably start doing everything. Live your life to the fullest, be healthy, take all the precautions possible. That's the best we can do. I mean, you cannot live in fear all the time. You go with the probability. I'm sure all the survivors will agree, and those who are in Bangalore will probably understand my hypothesis. I live very close to the outer ring road in Bangalore, and my chances of surviving if I walk on outer ring road is zero. But my chances of surviving breast cancer and living a healthy life for the next 5 years, as per statistical research done on millions of people, is 85%. So, what are the odds that you will accept? Will you go with your 85% odds, or will you go with your 0% odds? I mean, take your call. So that's how I view it. That's not how most people view it. They think they're always scared and afraid. I think if you let go of that fear of a relapse and the fear of you know dying one day. I mean, we all will die one day. In the long term, we'll all be dead. Whether somebody had cancer or did not have, we are all mere mortals. So I mean, you cannot fear death every single day of your life. Nobody does. Everybody knows it is a reality, and probably nobody we know knows what life is like on the other side of death. So whatever you have, make the most of it. Um, be fight on bravely. I mean, there's nothing to be ashamed of being a cancer patient and survivor. There are a lot of people who look up to us, a lot of survivors, a lot of patients, a lot of common people who are seemingly healthy today. A lot of people look up to us. I think people like Mehul have really set the bar high. He's running communities, he's helping other people. There is Shweta on the group. Yeah, Shweta is currently undergoing treatment. She's from Bangalore. She's become a friend recently. She contacted me through social media. I think she's a very brave girl. She's undergoing her chemo at present. She has the moments of self doubt, and we talk about it. And I think talking about it with somebody who is familiar with it is a very, very good approach, like having your own survivor buddy who you can, vent out with, unburden yourself. These kind of communities are really helpful. I'm not able to operate in a community because of my time constraints. I have a young daughter, I have my own job, I have my freelance assignments. So I'm not able to devote time in working with communities, but off and on I do. But at an individual level, somebody wants to call me, talk to me, I do try to help out. I try to put their minds at rest. I'm not a professional therapist, so I may fail at certain points. But what I do have is, a rich and very recent experience with cancer, which I can share with others. I know, if somebody can tell you that I know what you're feeling and I know exactly how it feels, it is really, really comforting. So my oncologist, when I first went to him on probably day one or day two of the consultation, he gave me a list of his patients who were of my same age, and he gave me their phone numbers. I think that's the best thing that happened to me during that treatment. I was able to call those people, talk to them, get their feedback, call them from time to time when I was like really low, and try to understand what it felt like for them. And when I had these moments of self doubt, whether I'm on the right track, whether something is going wrong. During treatment, patients always go through this: Am I getting the right treatment? Am I doing the right thing? What if something goes wrong, goes south? So those moments of self-doubt, you need somebody to tell you very calmly that, listen, I've underwent the same thing. I know exactly how it feels, and it's going to be okay. Just these three lines, they are really, really helpful. Yeah. So if I think I have mostly covered the topics that I wanted to cover, Ani. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to help. But before that, there's just one point remaining. I wanted to also talk about exercise. Now, exercise is really, really important for mental health. I myself remember uh, pushing myself out of bed after the first 3, 4 days of intense nausea and weakness after my chemo, and it had really stress busting benefits. Theoretically, we know that it pumps up your endorphins, and physical activity will tend to bump up the production of your brain's feel good neurotransmitters, which are also called your endorphins. But the practical aspects have not been stressed enough for any patient. Just going for a small, short walk, just doing your household chores, which you had been doing before you were diagnosed. These small activities, which make you exert yourself a little bit, they also release some feel good hormones, and that's really important. Sweating a little, walking a few paces extra every day, all this really helps. Maybe current patients who are undergoing treatment right now, what they can do is, I'll do 5 minutes of walking today. Tomorrow I'll make it 7. Day after I'll make it 10 or 12, and gradually increase. The more you exercise, your blood circulation improves. Your the impact of chemo on your body wears off, and you're ready for the next cycle. Same with fluid intake. Ensure as much fluids as possible, whether it's a patient, survivor, caregiver, everybody should ensure a good diet and a good amount of fluids, which is really, really important. Please stay away from processed foods. They're good for your mental health. They make you feel good when you eat processed foods because they're made that way. And it's a chore to cook at home by yourself and get all the ingredients and all that, but it's definitely healthier, good for your body. So probably, yeah, do that, eat healthy, and take lots of fluids. Those are the points I wanted to cover. If anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you for sharing how we have to, like how the cancer patients have to deal with the fear and anxiety. So I understood, but so it's not only the cancer patients, but the caregivers have also have to go through the tough time, right? So what will be your advice to the caregivers who might be or have traveled through these tough times?
See, for caregivers, I know for a fact that they go through a really tough time because, see, when the patient is in that anger or depression phase, for a caregiver it becomes very painful. I remember venting out and screaming at my family members. It was a terrible phase, and I had just become a monster then. And though I do feel terribly sorry about it, but it was a phase which everyone undergoes. And caregivers have to be really, really patient and really do a great job at motivating the patient. They themselves, the caregivers themselves, face a lot of mental stress because they have to constantly see somebody who is ill. Sometimes people who are at a later stage, chronically ill and critically ill, their caregivers have really much more draining experience. But it helps to not have your life revolve around the patient only, and get time to do your own thing, and also motivate and keep the patient distracted. If the patient is distracted, half the battle is won for the patient and also for the caregiver. If they keep their minds occupied, not constantly discussing about the illness and the disease. That is a very morbid thought to constantly talk about medication and disease and everything. You can't get your charts out every time you talk to the patient. Okay, so you were supposed to have this many grams of so many things, and did you do all that? Please take time to enjoy the normal day-to-day activities of life. Keep yourself distracted. Do things that you like and enjoy for the patient and the caregiver, definitely, and do things away of out of uh, your normal routine of the treatment and hospital visits. So this is something really important, both for the patient and the caregiver. Distraction is very, very important. Just staying with these morbid thoughts of what's going to happen and the symptoms and the treatment and all that. It's really, really can get really overwhelming. Yeah.
If anyone want to ask any questions, it's the time to ask now. Sahilji, would you like to share something about today's session?
I think someone's mentioned in the chat. Can you share your number? Can you share your number?
Yeah, I'll share the number.
No questions. No questions from anyone.
Hi, Swati. Shweta here.
Hi, Shweta.
I just wanted to know how to reduce the negative thoughts which keeps on popping sometimes in between chemo. The more we try to be positive, sometimes, some days, it really drags us down. So it's very difficult to maintain the same standard of mental health daily. So how to deal with that?
Okay, Shweta. So we did talk about it recently, and I'll stress on this again. The negative thoughts will come. It's very, very normal to feel low, to have these negative thoughts. I have shared with you that after my third dose of chemo, I was borderline suicidal. I went and told my doctor I've been praying all night for my death and saying that death is better than a life like this. So, and he told me something really, really important, and he's like, "This is the worst phase of your treatment cycle. You will have negative thoughts, but each successive dose later, you will start improving. Once you're halfway through with the chemo, you start feeling, that you kind of know what is going to happen, and once it becomes like a predictable thing, your fear of the unknown goes. That is one thing. The other thing is." You know for a fact that chemotherapy is like slow poison in your body, and it does have these damaging effects, but all of these effects are reversible. You The effects of these chemotherapy drugs will wear off eventually, to quite an extent. I wouldn't say 100%. I'm not qualified to make such a claim. Some people get rid of those um, some people get rid of those effects very quickly. Some have long lingering effects. For example, some people don't lose their hair. Some people lose their hair. Some people have very bad dryness in their skin. Some people have their voices become hoarse. Some people have digestion issues. I had severe nausea. I could not eat or drink anything for the first 4 to 5 days. And once you become exhausted from all the nausea and weakness, you tend to think such negative thoughts. I did the same thing. But once the effect started wearing off, I used to start feeling a little more energetic, and that would affect my mental health positively. So it's like a cycle. When your body becomes weak, your mind plays games. Once your body is slightly better, your mind becomes better, and your mind has to start controlling your body at that point. If you let go at that point and you let those morbid thoughts take over, that's where you lose the battle. Everybody who's come out of this disease has emerged stronger mentally, physically, in every way possible, emotionally as well. It's an emotionally draining experience. This successive hospital visits, the entire OPD ward. It used to make me nauseated sitting in that OPD. Every time I had to visit my doctor. A visit to that Manipal Hospital fourth floor where they administer the chemo. Even now, when I go for my port flushing or any such activity, I the smells trigger memory. It is a fact established in psychology. Smells trigger memory. When I smell that chemotherapy drug, the entire memory comes flooding back of that entire journey that I went through. Everything comes like a flashback, like a movie reel. If I can put it in I don't know how to express this, but later, probably a year or two later, you'll realize that these things, these memories that you carry with you, they will stay with you for the rest of your life. You will never forget. What you need to do is start controlling your mind. If you don't control your mind will start controlling you. And then half the battle, more than half the battle is lost. The doctor will give you treatment, the treatment will happen, but it will not affect you because you're getting stressed. And stress is your number one enemy. The more you get stressed, the more your body malfunctions, the more your hormonal balance goes for a toss, and the more chances you have for a relapse. Now, I visited my doctor this morning. I had got to my quarterly review, and my thyroid levels were a little haywire. And he was like, "Are you getting stressed?" I was like, "Yes." And like, that's bad for you, right? I said, "Yes." I said, "Okay, then don't get stressed. If you get stressed, your hormones go for a toss. Your body is not able to reset the balance, and that's when all kinds of diseases can come in. It's not just cancer; various other diseases can happen. So it's very very important to stay not stressed by controlling your mind. If you don't control it now, it is your treatment will not fructify, and you will not recover. So you have to tell yourself, I have to get better. That's the positive reaffirmation that is required. I am getting better and I will get better. And there are so many like me who have gone through it and they have recovered. There's a girl with the same name, Shweta. She was my doctor's patient. And I think a couple of years before I was diagnosed, she was 27 when she was diagnosed, not even married, triple negative. She underwent her treatment. She got through successfully. She married. She had a baby. She had a 1 year old child when I was diagnosed when I contacted her. So there are success stories everywhere. The problem is that all the sad stories get highlighted because we are a sucker for sob stories. All the happy stories don't get highlighted enough. We don't talk about them, or those people don't come forward enough, or maybe we are not looking at the right stories. There's so many success stories to follow. People have come back from stage 4. When I went for my first chemotherapy, the gentleman who met my husband, and said, "Why are you here, young man?" And then my wife is undergoing treatment today, the first chemo. Like, would you mind if I go and meet her? And my husband was a little shocked. Like, why is this old man want to meet my wife? Like, my wife is in the next bed. They have these day bed triages in chemotherapy, right? Most patients would know this. So my wife is on the next bed and she's been groaning quite a lot. I am sure she must be troubled by all the sounds. So I'll go speak to her. And he came and he told us, my wife has been battling with stage 4 cancer for last 2.5 years. During this period, our son got married, our daughter got married, we were blessed with a grandchild. So we had 2 marriages in the family and 1 grandchild, and 1 grandchild hopefully will be on the way in the next 1 year. And the only problem is my wife did not tell me about her breast lump for 2 years. And that's my biggest regret. If she had trusted and she had come up with this treatment, with this problem, I would have gotten her treated really early. My problem was I had ignored my wife and I have to live with this shame for the rest of my life. But remember this, you and your wife are in this together. Any third, fourth, fifth person does not matter. Doesn't matter how society looks at you. You are in this together. Fight it out and you will emerge a victor. See, I have won my battle. She's still undergoing treatment. But at her age, at the age of 65 or 70, she's lived 2.5 years with stage 4 and she's on her way to recovery. That kind of success story somebody needs to come and tell every survivor, every patient. Now, if I hadn't heard the story on day 1, I was so lost at that time. I was so low. I didn't know what to do. I was totally lost. So when people come up and tell you these inspirational stories, they make a lot of difference. And that is where Zen Onco and platforms like these who bring all of us together are really important in facilitating these stories. Maybe we all should write about. I've written my blog, and a lot of people have read my blog and come to me, contacted me. So many women have I've read it and contacted my friends and relatives also. And I've been told that, oh, XYZ friend of mine read your blog and read it out to her mother-in-law or aunt or whoever was suffering, and it was very inspirational. I mean, if one positive story can make such a huge difference to somebody's life, I mean, let's all come forward and everybody start telling the story. Maybe tomorrow or year later, Shweta can tell a story to all of us, and we will, applaud her because she was brave enough. Everybody becomes weak, and it's a sign of strength to come up and confess that, okay, yes, I am feeling low. I'm having morbid thoughts. It takes a lot of guts to admit that also. Shweta, that's a lot of gyan, I know.
Yeah, thanks, Swati. Thank you so much.
Hey Swati, sorry I could not hear any in the last time you were talking about me. So it's nice to see you and really nice to hear all the things that you said. And I completely agree with all that you said. And we need more people like you to spread the positivity and speak to people going through this journey. And I like the way you try to explain the percentage kind of thing, like the death rate by accidents and other deaths, and compared to that with cancer. Yeah, so everyone has to die. Once you accept that you are going to die, it becomes more easier. I went to the same phases, and then I lost a couple of friends when I was going through my treatment, and then I realized that, hey, I'm luckier than they are, and then that made me change the way I think. So every day morning I wake up and I'm awake. Many did not wake up today, but I'm lucky. So let's live today. Kal ka kal dekhenge. So yeah, so even if Shweta was asking you the question, so Shweta, I would like to say that live in today. Uh, don't think of a lot of tomorrow, and then there are thousands of survivors who have gone through even worse cases than we have seen, but they might not be opening up and telling their story. But yeah, nothing is impossible, and cancer is no big deal. It's just a disease. It has to be treated in a different way, and look at the positive people and leave behind negative people and negative thoughts. So it's easy saying don't be negative, but it's human nature. You negative and positive. If negative don't come in, then how would you know what is positive? So, but you have to learn to balance between the negative and the positive, and just look at your family and think positive about them. Think that the power of attraction is real. Think of good things, you will get them. And thanks, Swati, again for telling a story. And you are really of great help to everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mel. The first time I've actually spoken to you.
Yeah,
So we have been connected for so long. It's good to see you. And
yeah. Actually, it's 6:30 now in the morning for me. I'm
yeah,
awake
I
from
know.
4.
Thank you for making it. I was really surprised when I saw you at lockdown. I was like, what time of earth is this? For
Yeah,
you?
I'm like, I don't want to miss talking to Swati, so I'm going to be up. I'm 4 o'clock. I'm up.
Wow,
Like,
that's
okay.
really sweet. That's really sweet, Mehul. You are an inspiration for a lot of people. I've
Thank you.
read your stories. I'm really happy that you're sharing. I know for a lot of people who are survivors, but they don't like to share because of the social stigmas attached with cancer. And I think we are doing a great job, all of us survivors, in busting those myths and slaying the cancer dragon and being proud warriors. We wear our battle scars with a lot of pride. I'm
Yeah,
happy to. Yeah, I'm in good
in fact,
company. I feel.
you should be proud. I like during Corona, I used to tell my friends, "Hey, I'm a cancer survivor. You are not. So you are the weaker side. I'm the stronger side. So I take the pride in being, what you are. So if you think down about yourself, then people will also start talking down about. So if you say, "Mujhe na, I've beaten cancer, Corona, it's not good," and so kind of it's self-motivating. So you should keep talking good about yourself always. So that helps.
Yeah, and it's so good for anybody to unburden themselves also when we talk to patients and when they are able to unburden. It's really somebody who's gone through the same thing. A lot of times you cannot feel what the other person is going through, but as survivors, we can feel what somebody in a similar age group, similar social and family situation is going through. We can all lend a shoulder to people to at least, or a hand to people to hold on to. I think that's the only way we can give back for the blessing that we have now for second chance at life. I think it's a
Right.
huge, huge blessing. Yeah.
I think it's almost time to stop the session. Thank you, Swati ma'am, for being a part of the session today, and thank you everyone for joining us for today's session. And next week's session is already uploaded on our website pages and Facebook pages. Please go over there and have a look as well.
Thank you, and special thanks to Mehul for making it at this hour. Thank you everybody for joining, and stay in touch if you want. If you have any questions, please text in advance so that I can accommodate all the requests. Thank you all for joining today, and let everybody be strong from now on.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.